They didn't even come in person. The first real contact between Earth and the Galactic Federation arrived in the form of a sterile silver probe the size of a compact car. It drifted into the solar system on a cushion of gravitic waves, scanning everything from Pluto's frozen wastes to the cracked pavement of Sao Paulo. It didn't blink, didn't pause. It just watched. For 41 days, it hovered above Earth's orbit, silently digesting every signal, every database, every satellite transmission it could absorb. Languages, media, economic data, biometric scans. It recorded wars. It cataloged poverty. It noted our billionaires, our nuclear stockpiles, our reality TV. And then it left. No message, no contact, just a shimmer of light as it vanished into subspace. 5 weeks later, humanity got its answer. Not a call, not a summit, a document, a single file beamed to every orbital antenna and deep space dish simultaneously. Species designation, Terran, Homo sapiens. Utility tier, 0. Threat level, minimal. Classification, non-essential, non-strategic, emotionally erratic. Federation membership recommendation, denied. Suggested action, observation only. Do not engage. In bold text, the title read, Evaluation, You See Less. The document spread like wildfire. Within a day, it was on every screen. Within a week, it had become a galactic punchline. Alien comedians made stand-up routines about emotional Terrans who cried at sunsets and started wars over flags. Talk shows brought in xenosociologists who chuckled over Earth's primitive power grid and violent tribal history. One viral clip showed a Federation officer laughing so hard he choked on his own spit while watching human cooking shows. On Earth, the reactions were varied. Governments filed angry protests no one would read. Universities penned essays and rebuttals no one would respond to. Religious leaders took it as prophecy. Conspiracy theorists screamed about alien saps. But the real change didn't come from the powerful or the public. It came from the engineers, the misfits, the tinkerers in garages and labs who had spent their lives scraping together answers from broken parts and impossible problems. Useless, muttered Juno Takeda, lead mechanic of a Martian drilling crew, as she slammed a wrench onto a hydrogen line. They're right, and we've got nothing to lose. Somewhere in the Pacific, a billionaire bought a telescope array and pointed it where the probe had gone. In Siberia, a hacker collective began decoding the probe's emissions frame by frame. On Luna, a retired physicist quietly started drafting plans for an electromagnetic rift drive. The insult didn't break humanity. It focused it. We were no longer trying to be included. We were trying to prove them wrong. Memes exploded, useless and unbothered. Galactic garbage tier, baby. Tier 0, tier savage. Someone spray-painted "DELL build our Owen Dam Federation" on a skyscraper in Dubai. Kids got tattoos of the alien report on their arms like badges of honor. We've been underestimated by better. One teen posted, "Let's go full mad scientist." The aliens expected Earth to beg for inclusion. Instead, humanity rolled up its sleeves. We stopped waiting. We started building. And that was the moment the galaxy made its first mistake. Not when they ignored us, but when they laughed. The first wreck was found by accident. A Terran freighter, Tusk Horizon, was running a slow cargo route between Ceres and Titan when its long-range scanners pinged something unusual drifting in the Kuiper Belt. No known signature, no transponder, no registry. Just a massive chunk of metal, dead and silent. At first, everyone assumed it was debris from one of Earth's own failed deep space missions, but the hull was too smooth, the design too alien. No weld lines, no bolts. The damn thing looked grown, not built. The crew took a vote. 3 hours later, they latched onto the structure with cargo clamps and started cutting. Inside, they found bodies, pale-skinned, Four armed bipeds curled around melted consoles. The ship had clearly been through hell. Whatever tech had kept it flying was fused into slag. Its reactor burnt down to a radioactive heart. It was a tomb. And a treasure. The crew tore it apart like ants on a quartz. Circuit boards unlike anything on Earth. Gravity manipulators shaped like crystal seashells. Weapon systems so compact they made Terran railguns look like pipe bombs. They didn't understand a quarter of what they were seeing, but they didn't have to. They cataloged it, scanned it, and they sold it. The black market exploded. Within months, half of the outer belt was alive with scavenger crews. Ex-miners, ex-military, corporate defectors, lunatics with homemade spaceships and dreams bigger than their oxygen supply. They called themselves wreck hunters, and they chased alien corpses like gold rush prospectors. No one taught them how to reverse engineer alien tech, so they learned by doing. One team on Deimos rigged a destroyed alien warp core into a reactor and used it to power an entire ice refinery for 6 months, until it exploded. Another group accidentally triggered a defense AI and lost half their crew before managing to trap it in a feedback loop and reprogram it to brew coffee. Every disaster taught them something. Every cork ship was a university. Humanity wasn't invited to the stars, but now it had keys. Of course, the Federation noticed. A few alien species lodged formal complaints, accusing humans of desecration, unethical exploitation, and improper galactic salvage protocol. But there was no law against salvaging derelicts. The galactic powers had stopped caring about those old battlefields centuries ago. Their wars were over. Their dead were forgotten. But to humanity, every ruined ship was a seed. Every melted plasma cannon was a clue. Every torn-apart dreadnought was a blueprint waiting to be copied. Earth didn't build its first starship. It rebuilt it. They called it the Gallows Bird, an ugly, asymmetrical patchwork of human steel and alien bones. Its hull was scared, its systems temperamental, but it could move through subspace. It could shoot, mine, jump, and land. It could do things. And it was ours. The Federation scoffed at it. A Frankenstein's barge, they called it. But when a Valeri slaver frigate tried to hijack the Gallows Bird off a remote moon, the thing turned, burned hard, and disintegrated the attacker with a hacked beam array the humans barely understood. The incident was recorded. The video went viral in 3 systems. Suddenly, Wreck Hunter wasn't a slur. It was a career path. Engineering schools pivoted. Corporations formed. Privateers launched missions beyond the belt. Alien tech wasn't just for study. It was for business, for progress, for survival. We hadn't cracked the mysteries of the galaxy. We'd torn them open with crowbars and welding torches. And the stars. They were full of quartzes. The first world humans colonized outside Sol wasn't beautiful. It was called Chair, named for the way its atmosphere shimmered red in the light of its dying star. The planet boiled during the day, froze at night, and reeked of sulfuric winds strong enough to flay skin from bone. The soil was rich in metals, but toxic. The storms were electric, constant, and loud enough to rattle bones inside a mining rig. No alien species had ever claimed it. No one wanted it, which made it perfect. The first colony wasn't a city. It was a survival bunker, dropped into a crater and fused to the bedrock. It was staffed by 100 scientists, miners, lunatics, and desperate opportunists. People who didn't flinch at acid rain, who knew how to patch holes in radiation suits and recycle sweat into drinking water. It wasn't pretty, but it was ours. And it worked. Terraforming wasn't elegant. There were no grand machines floating in the sky, no atmosphere nets. Humans used blast furnaces and chemical nukes. They burned out the bad air, pumped in algae, and force-seeded bacterial life across the rock. The locals, what few neighboring systems there were, watched with horror as humans turned Chair into something barely livable and decided to stay. The Federation wrote it off as madness. But on Earth, the footage of humanity's first true extrasolar city, Ashhold, went viral. It showed dirty people smiling through cracked visors, ice mud sloshing under their boots, kids sledding down slag piles, and a flag planted beside a reprogrammed alien turret. Dirt world or not, the colony leader said, "We built this with our own damn hands." Applications poured in. Chair was just the beginning. Within 10 years, humanity had settled 5 more planets like it. Korak, a frozen exo-ice ball with methane geysers. Volus, an unstable volcanic world riddled with ore veins. Noxveld, a night-locked planet with permanent hurricane storms. None of them were on any Federation expansion plan. All of them had been abandoned or passed over. Too unstable, too expensive, too dangerous. But for humans, they were opportunities. Where the Federation built luxury domes and orbital habitats, humans dug bunkers. Where others required years of terraforming, humans brought in reactors and chemical scrubbers and just made it work. They built growing towers in caverns, fusion batteries under oceans, launch pads on lava fields. Human resilience wasn't just a strength, it was weaponized stubbornness. The alien media started calling these planets dirt worlds, the galactic version of calling someone's home a trash heap. The humans embraced it instantly. Dirt World memes exploded. Welcome to Dirt World stickers appeared on helmets. Colonists started calling themselves Mudborne. A Martian brewery released a bitter black beer called Sulfur Storm Stout. The term became a badge of pride. A Valeri trade minister once sneered in an interview, "Why would any sane species choose to live on a poisoned rock?" The next week, Cher exported its first cargo hold of platinum-laced silicates to the inner systems. It arrived 2 days faster than expected, on a human-built freighter powered by a salvaged graviton spine. Dirt worlds weren't just surviving. They were thriving. Soon, alien corporations started offering absurd money to lease land on them. Human companies laughed. "If you want in," one EarthCorp exec told a Selnary magnate, "you'll need to wear our patch and learn how to sweat." He declined. Bad move. The dirt worlds became supply hubs, manufacturing nodes, research centers for weather-resistant tech, even weapons testing sites. The Federation still wouldn't acknowledge humanity's rise. Didn't matter. The foundation had been laid. Not on paradise worlds, not on golden domes or crystal towers, but on the worst planets the galaxy had to offer. And that's where humans became kings. The Valeri Empire had once been the terror of 3 quadrants. Millennia ago, their fleets had carved bloody paths across the stars, conquering, enslaving, assimilating. But time dulled their edges. When they finally signed the Federation Peace Accord, the Valeri turned from war to arrogance. Their fleets shrank. Their diplomats fattened. Their admirals spent more time at galas than in orbit. They still believed they were feared. That belief was their first mistake. The second was targeting humanity. It started small, veiled insults in the Galactic Council, minor trade sanctions, threats over unregistered expansion into fringe systems. The Valeri accused humans of unlawful salvage, illegal colonization, reckless planetary exploitation. In reality, they were angry that the dirt worlds were turning profitable, and Earth wasn't asking permission. So they stopped talking and started moving. A task force, 2 cruisers and 4 corvettes, dropped into orbit over Gorak, one of humanity's coldest colonies. They sent a transmission, flat and formal, "Vacate or be removed." No response came. The Valeri launched a landing team. They expected frightened settlers and surrender. What they got were seismic mines, jury-rigged EMP blasts, and a detachment of colonists in patchwork exosuits, armed with retooled alien railguns and bad tempers. The snow turned red in seconds. The lead Valeri captain barely managed to activate his recall beacon before a sentry drone tore through his command unit. He never made it back. That recording, raw, unfiltered, brutal, was leaked across the system. It showed human colonists rising from ice trenches like ghosts, swarming over Valari dropships, turning scavenged tools into war machines. One colonist, drenched in snow and blood, stared into the Valari helmet cam and said, with eerie calm, "You want to fight? You'll get one. But you're gonna have to come down here and bleed for it." The Federation tried to de-escalate. The Valari ignored them. They sent a fleet next. 15 ships, full blockade. They expected to crush a few settlements and force Earth to negotiate. Instead, the stars exploded. Asteroids burst from nowhere. Hidden mines, automated salvage drones, retrofitted with plasma spikes, punched holes in frigates. Subspace comms went dark, jammed by pulse storms generated from old alien tech the humans barely understood, but knew how to aim. By the time the Valari realized they were in a trap, half their fleet was drifting in ruins. The other half tried to flee. One cruiser made it out. The rest didn't. The survivors talked about traps embedded in the ice, colonists fighting like insurgents, vanishing into caves, launching surprise assaults, tearing apart mechs and rebuilding them with kitchen tools and spite. One admiral ranted about death wolves in human skins. The Valari High Command declared a retreat. The Federation declared a ceasefire. Earth said nothing. But on the dirt worlds, bonfires lit up across colonies. Music blared. Kids danced on frozen lakes. Every scream played a loop of the moment the Valari flagship exploded in orbit, filmed by a colonist using a repurposed mining drone. Across the galaxy, species that had once pitied Earth began to watch with something else. Something that looked a lot like respect. And in quiet corners of the stars, the broken and the desperate, those who had lived under boots for generations, started whispering to each other, "If the humans can do it." The Valari Empire had meant to make an example. They did, just not the one they intended. By the time the Galactic Council passed sanctions against humanity, it was already too late. Earth had money. Not the kind that trickled through trade ports or limped in on licensing fees, but real money. The kind that flowed like oxygen, invisible but everywhere. The kind that moved empires. It started with the salvage. Then came the exports. Exotic minerals, war-reclaimed tech, modular habitats made from melted-down alien hulls. But the real fortune didn't come from what humanity dug up. It came from what they built. Earth engineers had figured out how to integrate alien systems in ways the original species never even considered. Federation tech was beautiful but bloated, perfectly calibrated, finely tuned, but fragile and slow to evolve. Human tech was modular, aggressive, ugly, and fast. They started selling the ugly stuff. Every merchant house, every pirate cartel, every outpost struggling to survive on some wine-blasted moon wanted what humans were offering. Weapons that worked even when they broke. Power generators that ran on anything. Drones built from 6 different species junk, and still more reliable than half the Federation's models. At first, alien markets laughed at the Terran-grade stamp. Then they saw the price. Half the cost, twice the durability. Immediate delivery. The laugh stopped. Human megacorps formed almost overnight. Ashforge Industries, Mudline Systems, Galactic, run out of modular offices on dirt worlds, staffed by ex-colonists and ex-soldiers, and a few shady synth brokers who didn't care about interspecies patent laws. These weren't corporations by old Earth standards. They were war-forged syndicates with lawyers. And they didn't sell with charm. They sold with need. The more fragile the planet, the more broken the station, the more remote the outpost, the more they wanted Terran gear. Humanity became the supplier for the parts of the galaxy no one wanted to claim. The edge worlds, the lawless zones, the places too risky for Federation pride. It made Earth rich. Not central system rich, independent system rich. And when you have money, you don't ask for a seat at the table. You buy it. One by one, minor factions started flipping. Border world stations once allied with the Federation quietly started using Terran defense contracts. Pirate warlords traded raiding for shipping routes under Terran escort. Small species, long ignored, started offering humans trade deals in exchange for basic tech support and a little military muscle. Earth took every deal. They didn't conquer planets. They bought them. Colonies abandoned by their parent empires were offered protection for a cut. Rogue stations with failing life support were fixed overnight for a service agreement. A desperate research guild out past the gravity reefs sold their asteroid lab to a human firm in exchange for air, heat, and 3 years of food shipments. The Terrans never raised a flag. They just sent contracts. And the Federation? They tried to stop it with embargoes. That didn't work, because humans didn't trade through official channels. Their fleets didn't dock at customs ports. Their shipping routes were encrypted, patrolled by privateers who answered to no council. And their bankers. They were fast, anonymous, and deeply connected. Earth didn't just survive the galactic economy. They rewrote it. By the time the Galactic Council realized how many planets were running on Terran tech, it was impossible to untangle. Human supply chains stretched like veins through half the known systems, and more than a few Federation members were quietly profiting from it. So when someone tried to enforce the sanctions, a certain silent pressure emerged from behind the scenes. Trade guilds, logistics directors, mid-level diplomats. If we push Earth too hard, they whispered, the galaxy stops running. And that's when humanity truly arrived, not by war or conquest or even diplomacy, but by invoice. The Federation never formally invited Earth to join. There was no ceremony, no flag raising, no speech in the Grand Spire on New Vethros, where the galactic elite liked to parade their civility. They assumed humans would beg. Humans didn't. By the time the invitation should have been issued, Earth already had economic ties in over 30 systems. Human salvage consortia controlled vast swaths of derelict space that once belonged to the old empires. Their dirt world colonies operated as autonomous economic zones, producing not just resources but prototypes, tech hybrids, and military-grade infrastructure no Federation committee could replicate. Earth didn't ask for permission. They sent an observer. Her name was Val Ames, former dirt world engineer turned diplomat. She arrived on New Vethros in a beaten-up freighter with a crew of ex-miners and a sentient coffee machine. She wore a patched flight suit, no insignia, no retinue, and a Terran-issue sidearm. She refused to leave its security. The council almost turned her away at the gates. Until she spoke. In perfect Velari dialect, she listed the names of 12 Federation colonies currently running on Terran tech. Then she read aloud the maintenance logs of 6 Federation starports using unauthorized human fusion coils. Then she offered to disable half of them from her seat. Live. No one laughed. Val didn't make demands. She didn't posture. She didn't negotiate for favor or membership. She just watched, listened. And when the Valeri ambassador mocked Earth's colonies as engineered refuse piles, she responded, maybe. But we made those piles livable. You abandoned them. That statement was broadcast across 17 systems. Earth never asked for a seat at the table again. Because the galaxy already knew. Humans didn't want the table. They were building their own. The Outer Reaches Council, once a loose confederation of fringe colonies, formally declared its realignment with Earth. 3 independent species joined the Earth-led Merchant Accord. Suddenly, systems that had always hovered on the Federation's edge were cutting deals with human corporations, flying the ash and blue of the Dirt World flag. The Federation accused Earth of sabotage. Earth responded with open-source tech blueprints and free atmospheric stabilizers for 10 newly terraformed worlds. The message was clear. While the Federation was arguing, Earth was doing. They fixed things that didn't belong to them, made systems run smoother, shipped spare parts to places too small for the Federation to care about. and never once asked for thanks. Because they weren't interested in trophies. They were interested in leverage. Diplomats came and went. Trade ambassadors smiled through tight teeth. Federation intelligence compiled entire dossiers on human corporate figures, trying to find cracks. But there was one thing they couldn't wrap their heads around. Human leadership wasn't centralized. There was no Terran emperor, no supreme council, no great unifying AI, just a loosely connected network of stubborn survivors, entrepreneurs, scientists, former soldiers, and chaos-loving engineers who made decisions locally, failed fast, and adapted faster. It wasn't order. It was momentum. And momentum wins. The Federation never got to vote on Earth's influence. Because influence doesn't wait for votes. Val Ames returned to chair a month later. Her freighter was heavier, slower, full of new contracts. The Grand Spire still stood. The Federation still held its votes, still debated protocol. But their universe was already different, and everyone knew why. The humans hadn't just come to the galaxy. They'd claimed it, one shipwreck at a time. There was no declaration, no banners raised, no fleets amassed at the edges of known space, no call to arms that echoed across systems like in the old wars of history. It started with software, a glitch in a Terran-made life support system on a Federation-controlled mining rig, a silent, unassuming failure. Systems came back online within 6 seconds. No casualties, no damage. But when Federation technicians pried open the logs, they found code they didn't recognize. Layers of Terran modular AI they couldn't trace. Code that had rewritten itself mid-failure and corrected the Federation system without clearance. They called it a security breach. Earth called it an adaptive patch. That was the first shot. What followed was subtle. Infrastructure across dozens of Federation systems, communications relays, power grids, logistics routes, all began encountering small anomalies. Not enough to halt operations, just enough to remind those in power that nothing they used was entirely their own anymore. Terran systems had become the nervous system of the galaxy, and humans had their hands on the spine. The Federation launched an internal audit. Every system flagged with unauthorized Terran tech was shut down for inspection. Ships were grounded, ports delayed. Critical sectors of transport and data relay halted overnight. It cost the Federation trillions. Within 3 weeks, 12 border colonies filed economic damage claims against the Federation. Meanwhile, Earth said nothing. Terran companies issued polite statements, expressed concern for service outages, and quietly offered backup systems at half the cost of what had just been taken offline. It was war. But it wasn't being fought with soldiers. It was being fought with supply chains, software, and a level of strategic patience that no one expected from a species known for chaos. While Federation councils argued over protocol, Terran proxies flooded the outer markets. Entire colonies that once depended on Federation tech were retrofitted by mudline systems in exchange for minerals or land rights. Former Federation defense contractors jumped ship and started working with Terran firms that offered better pay, fewer rules, and a chance to innovate without red tape. The Federation tried to strike back. Sanctions, blacklists, legal threats. But every time they blocked a Terran company, 3 more sprouted up with different names, different filings, and the same engineering. They weren't just losing territory. They were losing relevance. A turning point came on Velthera, a once proud Federation core world now aging and inefficient. Their orbital elevator collapsed, years of neglected maintenance, and the Federation couldn't respond in time. They cited bureaucratic delays and funding shortages. Earth responded in 22 hours. A Terran relief fleet, unmarked and unofficial, arrived with modular scaffolding, drop engineers, medtech drones, and stabilizers. They didn't ask for permission. They rebuilt it. Velthera's parliament issued a formal apology to Earth the next month and signed an exclusive partnership contract. No bloodshed, no armies, just competence. The Federation still had firepower, but they no longer had control. And they knew if they ever fired a real shot, if they sent a fleet or pulled a trigger, the galaxy's quiet anger would become loud. Too many were watching. Too many had benefited. And too many had decided the new way was better. The quiet war wasn't won with explosions. It was won with 10,000 favors remembered, 10,000 problems solved, and a galaxy's worth of people realizing they didn't need their old masters anymore. Not when the humans were cheaper, faster, and already there. It didn't happen with a bang. No sudden collapse of the Federation. No unholy war to mark the end of the old order. What happened, instead, was a slow, inevitable rise. A shift in the balance that no one saw coming until it was too late to stop. The final straw wasn't political. It wasn't military. It was cultural. Humans had, without asking, become the new default. When a new station needed to be built on the edge of the system, who did you call? When a settlement needed weapons to survive against pirates, who did you contact? When a research base needed power, defense, and AI that would actually work under extreme conditions, who provided the solution? It wasn't the Federation. It was us. And no one seemed to realize when it crossed the line from being helpful to taking over. No one remembered the point at which human influence ceased to be a favor and became an expectation. But that was the price of being indispensable. No one asked for Earth's intervention. No one offered a thank you. But when a local crisis hit and Federation response teams were too slow, too disorganized, or too bureaucratic to act, humans were already there. No one asked for Terran-built drone fleets to stabilize planetary atmospheres during emergencies, but they came anyway, uninvited. And when the galaxy saw what Earth had become, efficient, innovative, and ultimately unanswerable to the Federation, it couldn't go back. Even the largest, most powerful species were suddenly asking, what do we have to offer now? Earth had taken over the galaxy's infrastructure. Not with weapons or fleets, but with something far more valuable: reliability. And then the Federation made a fatal mistake. They tried to enforce an old system on a new age. The Council called for a new trade tariff, a punitive measure against independent corporations, with Earth at its heart. It was supposed to slow human expansion, force colonies back under Federation control, and halt the steady erosion of power. Instead, it accelerated everything. For the first time in history, entire systems stopped trading with the Federation. Entire sectors, once loyal, broke ties with the galactic power and signed private agreements with Terran corporations. The ripple effect was immediate. Terran companies didn't just get richer, they got more efficient, more aggressive. They began building their own infrastructure on the Federation's land. Space stations, deep space docks, supply depots, all built, owned, and operated by humans. The Federation tried to push back. Blockades, protests, political maneuvering. But it was too late. Their economy was too enmeshed with the Terran machine. To cut the cord would have meant a systemic collapse. It wasn't a war. It was the inevitable fall of a system that had overstayed its welcome. And in the wake of it all, humans didn't take over the Federation. They didn't burn the old power down. They quietly replaced it. No one expected it. No one noticed when it happened. And the day came when the Galactic Council, now in shambles, asked Earth if they would take a seat at the table. But Earth, already holding the galaxy in their hands, simply smiled. "We don't need your table anymore," Val Ames said during her final address. She stood on the stage in front of the council, not as a representative of any one government, but as a human. "While you were arguing over protocol," she continued, "we were building the future. The galaxy was no longer theirs. It was ours, and no one had ever asked permission to build it.